Good morning. Tom Galuscio here for the Westerly Historical Society and another exciting episode of Reflections, our oral history program. And today I have the pleasure of introducing John Hall. Good morning, John.
Well, good morning.
Good to have you.
Great seeing you from way past and many other little facets that our lives have passed in. So yeah, it'd be great to be here and talk a little bit about some of my history, but some of the history of Avondale and how it's changed, my family life and sort of where I came from. And it's kind of an interesting story, and we'll get into it here a little bit. The Hall family has been on the property, and I still live in the same house, since 1749. Now, if we look back at our history books, that was before it was a country.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've been there a while.
Yes, sir.
On my father's side was obviously from England descents, and there's a hall that was in Jamestown, a hall in Newport, and eventually ended up down here in Avondale, known then as the Lottery, but that's all changed now a little bit. On my mother's side, I'm Mohegan Indian. So therefore, we've been here, my heritage is a tremendously long time. I worked over at, I didn't work at the thing, but I was on the election committee for the Mohegan tribe for a great number of years, and was involved with that, and as their councils were changing, this, that, and the other. And I always sort of knew I was Mohegan through a great aunt, Mary Virginia Morgan. She was from Noank. She used to write in the Norwich paper, Noank Notes. But she was a gifted school teacher, as so many are. Instead of it as a job, she took it on as something really important to bring the next generation of people. She was big on Shakespeare, but she would sit in front of the class and read Shakespeare. She said, you shouldn't be reading, I'll read it to you. She had a kind of a very interesting history after she was semi-retired, but she went traveling all over the world. And one of the great stories I always tell on her was she was in Edinburgh, Scotland, and she sprained her ankle. And one of her great desires was always to go to the castle. So she got a taxi and headed to the castle and was stopped by the authorities there. And they said, "I'm sorry, madam, but no one can drive to the castle. You have to walk up the hill to the castle." Well, being the bold no-anchor or New Englander, she said, "Young man, I have sprained my ankle very badly, and I have traveled a great distance from Noank, Connecticut, and I have absolutely no intentions of walking up there, and I shall be driven." And she said, "I am the Duchess of Noank." Now, she just popped that in her head, but it stuck. And lo and behold, onward they passed her through. So that's just a little bit of the history of where I came from and whatever. But getting back more on maybe me at the time, was born in the Westerly Hospital in 1940. So therefore, I think at this point in time, and lived in Avondale all my life, or not yet, as we say. But the fun thing is, I think now I'm the oldest born child that's still in Avondale. There was David Rathbun, he was there for a while, Cordy Chapman, Jack Barrett, some of the people we know, the Burdicks, Gregory Burdick and Howard Burdick. And Howard Burdick was in the Navy as a commander. Some interesting characters and went through Avondale. But anyhow, a little bit more on where I was. And in my youth, living there and just playing baseball, soccer, and on a little field there. Actually, it was on the Rathbun property. And just being with a bunch of older people, and just really learned a little history of how it all was there. My father worked at Cottrell's as a tool maker, second shift. So I really was brought up by my grandfather. And my grandfather lived in the same house as we did, he and my grandmother. They were upstairs. But so anyhow, I spent most of my younger life with my grandfather, which was really kind of a neat way to do that. And another interesting thing, we were out in Alaska on a trip, my wife and I, and one of the things that they do in the Indian tribes out there is the children were brought up by their aunts and the uncles. So no, it's the good cop, bad cop. The bad cop was their uncle, and the good cop was their parents. They never really strictly got onto the kids. It just made far more sense to come from a different source and still have that family growth that we really have there. It's kind of, when I've heard that, I said, well, I know how that worked because my grandfather took care of me. We would go to Block Island in his fishing boat, which was named the Corrine, and that was named after his first child, which was my Aunt Corrine. And then my father was next in line as Frank Hall, or actually his real name was John Franklin Hall. But he had a relative of Frank Hall, who was a tugboat captain on one of the tugboats in Westerly, very steam tugger. So, but he liked that name a lot better, so he always went by Frank Hall rather than John Hall. So, just a quick little.
Well, that solves one of the mysteries because you're John Hall Jr.
Junior, yeah. So where was the senior? Yeah, exactly. Oh, good. I'm glad you're right with me on this.
I am.
Yeah, terrific. So anyhow, it was a little history there. And I can remember if we came to Westerly from Avondale, we didn't have a car in those days. We'd ride the bus, which also was a school bus by John Prezzato. It was a bus trip that went to Watch Hill every day at certain times. And even later on when I was in high school, the late bus you went down to Vars drugstore, which people should know where that really is, but they don't. But that's the other thing.
They do now.
They do now. And the other thing is I can remember as a child, the first stoplight in Westerly that I remember was on that corner as you come down and make the turn by the Washington Trust. It was on a post. It was a stoplight. Very modernistic. We really big time we're going. But a little bit stepping back again, and the Hall family in Avondale has just been there since 1749. And a great-great-grandfather could be another great in there, was a whaling captain. And he sailed a whaling ship out of New London called the Caledonia. And I have a record of a newspaper clipping of when he returned on one of his trips with whale oil but whale bone, which I'll get into, well, right now. I'll say why that was important. My father, along with being a tool maker and a wonderful character of a guy, did scrimshaw, which is the carving on whalebone. During the time that Kennedy was president, whalebone was very important, and everybody was saying, where'd they get it from? Are they killing whales? What are they doing? So my father was visited by a federal agent. And the federal agent came in and said, Mr. Hall, I'd like to know where you purchased or got this whalebone. He said, I've been waiting for you. There was an article written in, I think, the New London Day. It was, and it mentioned the ship Caledonia, and it mentioned his great-great-grandfather bringing in thousands of pounds of whalebone and whale teeth probably also with that. And the federal agent said, you're the first person I've interviewed that can actually tell me where you got it from.
Wow.
So that's kind of another little offset of
yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, it's a good point of a little history here as like the Smiths know the granite, but the Halls got away with our feet in the water.
That's why you're here. We want to know.
Yeah, so it was fun. As I say, we'd take the school bus, which is also the regular bus to Watch Hill, to go to Westerly. And on other times we would go, my grandfather, we would go up the river in in the careen, which is a lobster boat at that time. And we'd come up and we'd tie up to Hiscox Lumber and Coal Yard. Now, people have probably forgotten that that was a coal yard, which is now where the boat ramp is right there. But there was so that you'd tie up there and then you'd walk into town. You know, it's amazing how it's really has changed.
I was going to ask you how the dynamics of the river have changed, because your family have pretty much owned.
We've been on it.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Yeah.
Well, the very exciting thing that's happening right at this moment in time is the river is hundreds and hundreds of % better than it ever was before. I mean, years ago you'd hear the story down in the bay, well, we'll get down there by Seal Rock. And you know, probably up until the age of, 18, 20, 21, I never knew seals came here. Well, the seals are there now.
Off the yacht club, right?
Yeah.
Seal Rock.
Yeah, just off of Watch Hill Yacht Club, in that area there. Ospreys are in the river. Just in Avondale now, north of Avondale, there's an eagle's nest, and a bald eagle flies by every once in a while, and you see him. Now, nature is telling us, at least we're doing something good, because those little guys wouldn't show up if it wasn't the case. And on the river now, even just the other day at the boatyard, this thing came scooting past my feet. It's a mink. There's mink in the river too, running up and down the coastline there. It's kind of really exciting about what's really happening now, and it's so grateful for the town to have the pump out boats and do all of that. It has helped clean up the river immensely. Thousands of gallons of boat waste is properly being disposed of, and which is really good. Though we probably shouldn't have, but I can remember, like, there would be a couple of us, if we wanted to go swimming to Watch Hill, would dive off the dock in Avondale, one with the boat rowing and one swimming. And we'd swim down to Watch Hill with a person rowing the boat, and then we'd swim back. It was quite a trip to do something like that, several miles. Being clever Yankees, you swam downriver when the tide was going out, and you swam upriver with the tide coming in. So you were smart enough to grab those two little facets of that can help us along a little bit. So good.
What a great place to spend your youth, though.
Oh, it's been terrific. You know, it's just
and not just your youth, your whole life.
My whole life.
Even now in your golden years, it's still a great community to.
Absolutely. Things have changed. I mean, I can remember a period of time I knew absolutely every person that lived there. And now with people coming in for summer homes and things, it's a little bit different. And I have to say, I really don't know some of my neighbors, certainly as well as I should have. But one of our good neighbors was the Gernsheimers, and they live on the corner just past the chapel as you turn onto Avondale Road. And she was a school teacher, and I had her as my English teacher in high school, thank God. She taught me how to swim. She was a great swimmer, so as a young kid before high school, for sure. The schooling, I went to a nursery school in town here, and then I went to Park Avenue for the first 4. One of my other adventures, I have a great number of adventures. I've really been so lucky. We'll step back to my great aunt again, who was a world traveler, and she had an extra passage that took me to Europe, to the World's Fair in Brussels. So that was my first trip of going across the ocean by ship. It was a cruise, a smaller cruise ship, nothing fancy, but anyhow. So my first stepping back onto Europe, and we went to Switzerland and France and Belgium and Italy. Kind of really interesting part of my life.
Yeah.
So,
How old were you when you made the trip?
I had to be 15 years old.
Good age.
And that's my first big adventure out of Westerly, you know. Typical Rhode Islander, if we go to Hope Valley, we've made a big trip.
Pack a lunch.
Yeah, pack a lunch. Gotta go to do that. But anyhow, that's a little bit of some back history. In high school, or actually in junior high school, I had another. I've been so lucky with some of the teachers and people that I've met through my life. We had a music teacher by the name of Mrs. Barton, and she said, "You know, you have a special singing voice, and you should do more." And so she formed a group of us, the Jolly Niners, it was called, and one of my dear friends who just passed away here was Charlie Kitchen, and that's when I first met Charlie Kitchen, and we sang in this group.
What a great man.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, oh yeah, God, Charlie was something else. But anyhow, we've been dear friends up until his death. And still are, really. I think of him often. I was probably, in my youth, a little dyslexic, which, of course, back then they didn't know what the hell that was. I had trouble reading. And we had an operetta that actually I think Helmeta Livingston was in this also. Yeah. And she is, yeah. And I tried out for the part, and of course I couldn't read what they were trying to say. But Mrs. Barton had faith in me. She says, "No, he can do that. Just don't worry about that." And then I realized what I had done is instead of trying to read, which was very slow for me, I memorized the damn thing. So not only did I know my part, but I knew almost everybody else's part in the same thing. And when they stopped and I was supposed to come in. So, and musically, I joined the choir which is another interesting facet. Because we didn't have a car, when you went to church, you had to go to the church to whoever had the car. And so West Broad Street I had gone to, but we really, basically from way back was Christ Episcopal Church. I went up there with the Chapmans, basically, with the drivers and the Burdicks. Okay. And sang from that point on, and in the choir. And I have, unfortunately, in the past few years, I've been, because I sort of stumble and walk a little bit now, I really can't get to that but I think of it often, that I should really be in the choir singing, and I was fortunate enough that I could get up to sing the funeral service for my friend Charlie, and it was nice to do. George Kent, it was actually Charlie Kitchen's grandmother, Mrs. Larkin, was the choir director, so some of the young choir boys at that point in time that I maybe knew or didn't know, but of the same vintage, were gentlemen by like George Kent, started off that way, and Doug Rayner, he was also so. And I've met these people through my entire life as we still carry on going on. So
that choir has been a gem for this community for a long time. It has represented us worldwide.
Oh, worldwide, absolutely fantastic. And I had the good fortune to know George Kent Sr., Bunky's dad. And someone asked the question once, said, "When do you think Bunky was a little special in music?" He says, "Well, I went downstairs one day, and he's playing the trumpet in one hand, and he's playing the accompaniment in his other hand on the piano." He says, "That's when I knew he was kind of special." Wow. So I've just been lucky with the people that I've met and through life and going on. I'm just sort of rambling on here, but
no, you're doing fine.
It's kind of some interesting thing. During high school, well, I played in the band in both the junior high school and high school, and then I thought on my sophomore year up here that maybe I'd be on the football team. Well, I wasn't quite big enough, but anyhow, there I was. So now I'm running into people like Matt Lewis, and Bob Henderson, these other people.
We had Matt in here earlier.
Yeah, and so that was a short-lived one-season thing, because after practice up here at Ward Avenue, I had to walk home. And I was lucky sometimes that it was late enough that someone from Westerly was driving back to Watch Hill or Avondale at that point in time. I said, well, that's probably not the smartest thing to be trying to do here in late afternoon, evening, just to hoof myself back to Avondale again.
Oh, that's dedication.
Yeah, it was kind of fun, but anyhow, yeah. I think the Coach Celentano, everybody played in one of the Stonington Westerly football games. And even if you were absolutely terrible to make any difference, the last 10 or 15 seconds of the game, he put you in. So you could actually say, I played in the Stonington game, And I'm sure the Stonington guys probably have the same, if you talk to them a little bit, same sort of thing.
It must have been tough growing up with your father starting a laborious business like that.
Oh yeah, it was. Well, he was still. It was right after the war, and he worked second shift, as I said, at Cottrell's, and everybody that he worked with said, Frank, you've got a place on there. Have you got a dock there? A place? Maybe I could keep a boat. So this is really how the boatyard really started. Now, in his career, he had worked at Avondale Boatyard and in various other places. So the boating was there, so we didn't have to figure that all out. So we started the boatyard back right after World War II, and we only had one dock and some pulley lines, which pulled the boat off on a cable, and then we got railway so you could haul them out. Then we had another railway. We ended up having 5 railways at one point in time. So on the high tide of the morning, you could haul out 4 or 5 boats, and then spend the rest of the day putting them away, which in those days was, again, a little labor intense. There was, boats would be on wooden cradles, they'd come off the track, and we'd have planks on the ground and wooden rollers. And so as a teenager, I was moving rollers from place to place to move boats and put them where they were, and then you'd jack them off the cradle. I mean, it was an all-day operation, which now today with our hydraulic equipment and travel lift, that's like a 5-minute job, but it would take all afternoon and then you'd have to build the stands to hold the boats up. And today you have jack stands, which are metal things with a screw top. It just holds them up. And that job's done, but. So it's really, that's when the boatyard really started. And some funny things people sort of ask me, other silly little questions. Said, do you run the boatyard? And I said, no, I try to keep up with him. Because it's really the case. And even like today, it's a rainy day here, and we have those in the spring. And there's weeks you can work and weeks you can't work. And it was all outside at that point in time. There was no buildings to be in, or maybe a cover you could get under to do a little bit of the work.
And once a boat's out of the water, that's when the real work starts.
Oh yeah, we're actually
scraping barnacles and sanding. And
got that all done. Now, a good number of years ago, when we first got the travel lift, and that just changed everything. And then it's changed again, that we now own 5 acres of land up at the Westerly Airport industrial park, with a 10,000 square foot building. So we're actually more productive and busy from December to right now, well, until actually end of May. It allows us, it's doubled our business, the number of people we got working for us. And
wonderful.
Yeah, it's sort of a totally different on how it really started, from crawling under a boat and getting red copper paint in my eyes and wire brush and laying on the ground and jacking things up and blocking, but some lessons really learned there. So of how that all was and how that got started. The only time I haven't worked in the boatyard was a period of time from 59 to 63. And I was in the United States Navy in the submarine service. I had a mentor that was in by the name of Johnny Hawk. And Hawk was during the war in submarine service and a great number of war patrols and stuff. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I kind of followed his footsteps. I joined the reserve unit in high school over in New London. And it allowed me to, it was a good move actually. It allowed me, we learned in the first year the basic things you might go to boot camp for. So if you did well learning in the reserve unit, you didn't have to go to boot camp. So I avoided that. Okay. I thought that was pretty good. And then we went to a submarine school, reserve school, and if you were in the top 5 or 10% there, you went directly into the school again. And if you passed that again, you could pick where you wanted to go. Well, our choices were myriad. I mean, just all kinds. But it was, but I chose Hawaii. I thought that would be kind of nice to go there, thinking of the sun and the surf and all that. Well, when you're in a 300-foot tube, you really don't get to see the sun or the surf all that much. But it was an interesting time being out there. One of the, in Hawaii, one of the more interesting things that happened, we were there for the 20th anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and it ended up on a Sunday again. And there was a feeling that came over me, and I'm sure a great many others. You knew as you got up that morning and knew that when the flag was out and back, you absolutely knew something had happened in the world. It's just a feeling of, God, I'm on the 20th anniversary of the bombing here. So, submarine service was really good. I got to travel to the Orient 4 times. Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, Philippines, Guam a little bit, Okinawa, and all that Pacific Rim and going down there. It was a period of time and we were sort of in that area during the Cuban crisis, and I can just say that we were activated, is all I can say about that. So it was an interesting time.
Sure.
But, so that was, again, another part of my little funny life. The thing that I've sort of gotten way ahead of myself, but I'd like to talk about just a little bit, is that during the late 40s, we had an author by the name of Marjorie Hayes, and who had written a number of children's books. And she lived with us that summer, and I was
How'd that come to be?
How that came to be is there's a book here, Robin on the River, and it was written by her, and it was about all the things that we did as kids in Avondale at that point in time. Just see what it is. And the thing, for Frank, Julie, and John and the river is how the book started. But it they changed the name of certain things, but it was all there, and it really was an interesting thing to have happen, I think. It was kind
I'm
of
going to have to look for one of those for our collection.
Yeah, well, you can. I know that but this was, I've got several copies. This is my daughter's copy, and I knew she could put her hand on it instantly. Mine's in the house somewhere.
Okay.
The other great thing in my life is the Chorus of Westerly. Again, I was one of the early members of that in '59 when it started, because going back to the teacher, I had Mrs. Barton. She said, you should get down there and try out for that. I did. She said, it'll be good. So in the chorus, I rehearsed for the first year, but did not sing in the concert because I was also in '59 is when I graduated, and that's when I went in the service. And unfortunately, the Navy called me to be somewhere else rather than being here to sing the first concert, so I missed that. But I certainly, after getting back out of the Navy and back here, have sung a great many of the concerts here in town, and also the trips to Europe, and did all but one or two of those. So it's really been a broadening of being a part of that group. And then again, with my dear friend Charlie Kitchen, we were involved with which is good to see that 12th Night is back, but we used to be the buffoons. We would try to spoof on, without telling anybody, the very first year. The jesters would do some act, it would be fantastic, and Charlie and I would go out and make absolute fools of ourselves trying to do the same thing. And one of the best ones I think I ever did, I fiberglassed some rolling globes that the guys would walk on. So everybody was saying, what are they going to do now? So we came rolling out with this, Charlie and I, rolling out with this rolling globe. And everybody in the chorus knew, there's no way in the world we're going to stand on these things. No way. Except we broke it in half, put it down, flat on the bottom, so we just had a round dome, stood there, and then threw hoops to each other on that. And it was just kind of a hoot thing, a spoof on the jesters. And they really liked. I still talk to Randy Judkins and Tom Murphy. They still chuckle about it. They'd stop after their act. They'd come back just to see what the hell we were up to. And we were very fortunate. They actually, we housed them for a while too, so got to know them personally. They're wonderful guys.
You use that word fortunate, but it's such an appropriate word for our lives. Really.
Oh yeah.
Very fortunate.
Absolutely.
The friends that we've made over the years, the activities we've been involved in.
The things involved still with the fire department down in Watch Hill. I was a captain down there for 17 years. Way back when.
Remember our good friend Shep when he was fire chief?
Yep, he and I were all together down at Watch Hill, and had to step away for a while, but back again, and they meet every Thursday morning for breakfast down there, and we'd go in there, and the chief they have there still refers to me as captain, which is kind of neat that's what I was for a long period of time. But even before that, I was a scoutmaster, which again, I didn't get into the Boy Scouts yet, but that was Troop 3 down here.
Okay.
And ended up not as an Eagle Scout because it's not a direction I wanted to go in, but I was a assistant scoutmaster and just went that way. Then I was a scoutmaster at Watch Hill for the boys down there, and we'd go up to Yargo and stuff like that. And, very fortunately, one of the great trips we had, a Rhode Island trip, went to Camp Philmont, and which is the National Scout
Jamboree thing.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool to do all of that. The other interesting thing that we did right after the Cuban crisis and all of that area, we were in the Philippines, and then we were sent to go to Saigon. Now, why would the federal government decide to send a submarine to Saigon? But they did. And we went there in 1962, April Fool's Day, to Saigon for 4 or 5 days, and then came back out of the river there and went up and down the South Vietnamese coastline just to wave the flag, just to prove we could be there. That's sort of another little adventure in my life that we had. So, but Avondale, it's a great old place, still is. The houses, unfortunately, are getting bigger. The people are here only half the time, which is, I guess, all right. It's a lovely place to be half the time. But when I was a kid, everybody was either worked in the bank, some did, were fishermen, sold fish. Certainly the Chapmans was, at that point in time, as when I was really little, was still having cows and milk and stuff, and that changed later on as the market grew, and he became a chicken farmer. We had 16,000 chickens there that you would take care of from little tiny chips, and then they'd either be capons or broilers, and then make a decision at one point in time. We'd have to go in as kids and help when that process was being done. And my friend David, I don't know if he talked about it, but we always had to stand in the corners of the building. A room was divided in half, and the chickens would run to the corners and they'd suffocate. So our job was to throw the chickens out of the corner, so to just keep the flow of things till they were all on the other side again. And then Chapman, Mr. Chapman would pay us in chickens. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Of course, I don't know how, we thought it was great, but what the hell. Another interesting thing about Avondale is that Court Chapman Sr.'s father, Palmer Chapman, was known as Halfpenny Chapman. And he was so cheap that, and I've got one of these, my father had saved, would take a penny and cut it in half with a cold chisel in the payment if something came to a halfpenny. And he was then known as Halfpenny Chapman.
Wow.
So that's an old Yankeeism.
That's interesting.
And I think in my great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather, we had a big barrel of kerosene here at the property at 3 India Point Road, and he would fill the lanterns, instead of light bulbs for street lights, were lanterns. And his job was to fill the lanterns and light them every night.
Wow.
So we're really talking about things you read about years ago happened, but all of a sudden you say, wow, that's kind of in my lifetime that this has all changed.
Well, some of those traditions died hard in Avondale.
Oh, yeah, we still do all kinds of things like that. Halloween was a big one, too. We tried to see how many policemen we could irritate. But,
I'm sure you and David didn't have
we
quick work of that.
Yeah, well, it was pretty good. There was a Mrs. Spencer who was owned the lottery, the house there called the Lottery, and we'd hide her fence gates. And we'd take them up to the Grange Hall up there and put them by the flagpole. And she knew downright well who did it. And she said, "Do you suppose you could find the boys that took my fences and bring them back? I'd appreciate it." And of course we would. Yeah. You know, we were thinking we were being bad, and she says, those little Dickens, you know. That's all they're doing.
You talked about your neighbors being partial residents now, but they picked a good time of year to come to Avondale. There was a rough time in the winter where winters in Avondale must have been tough.
Oh, they were tough. We had a Jeep, and when I got my license, we used to plow Avondale because the town wouldn't quite get there right as fast as you'd want them to.
Yeah, and if I recall,
but they had a lot of things to do.
The river used to freeze more frequently than it ever did.
Well, that's another interesting
Before
story.
aerators and whatnot.
Yeah. There was a gentleman named Cleve Clark, and his son Ted Clark ran Avondale Boatyard. My father had worked for him. And he was an interesting character, too. His skill level came during the war. He was stationed in the Pacific as a boatyard woodworker, fixing PT boats. Okay. So it's kind of another little flashback. But anyway, Cleve Clark, he said the river was frozen hard enough. I've actually driven on the river in a car. But you can't do that now. I can't even think about it. But the way the tide is and the weather is now. And there was one year in the 70s that I do remember, very cold winter, and the ice was pushing the docks sideways as it expanded. So we took a chainsaw and cut to make a path to relieve the pressure. And there was 22 inches of ice on the river that I cut. Had a chainsaw, went all the way down, and the water wouldn't come up yet, and then it would break through. And then we'd move blocks of ice up on the side of where we cut, just so it wouldn't.
That had to be the same winter I walked across Winterpog Pond from Shaw Road to Atlantic Avenue.
Yeah.
Had to be the same winter.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I bet it
About
was.
77, 78.
It's kind of the silly thing we did when we were kids.
Oh, yeah. Our parents never knew about it.
No. Well, my parents knew about this one, but anyhow, yeah. My mother and father were just super people. they were both artists. And some of her, one of the things that she did is she did tollware paintings, where you'd get a tray and get it all blackened, and then with bronze powders and a stencil the design. And I'm sure like the Babcock Smith Hellier's probably got things like that now. And then etch with a stylus, and then oil paint over the top of that, and then varnish and clear coat over the thing there. And she was really good at it. And she actually had all the ladies around the area there would take painting classes. So in our kitchen, all these people would show up, and she'd teach them how to
Wasn't a very big kitchen either.
Well, big enough for maybe 6 or 8 people, but yeah. Well, let's even talk about the kitchen. When I was, the first part of my life, the only heat we had in the house was a kitchen stove, a kerosene oil-burning stove. So when you got your buns out of the bed in the morning, you went to the kitchen, because that was the only heat that was there, other than 3 working fireplaces. And I've upgraded those now, so they really are quite safe and active. And one of the big fireplaces, which is where the kitchen originally was in the house, has a beehive oven. So, it's people that I know, they refer to my house as half a house and half a museum. So,
been a long time since I've been down there.
Oh, you should come down.
I will.
You should come down and take a look at what I'm talking about. One of the other funny stories is my wife, Bridget, and I, we were in Nantucket, and we went to the Whaling Museum, and the lady is explaining whaling. So I said that, she said, well, this, she said, is a whaling boat. And I said, oh yeah. I've got a copy of one of those which my father had bought, actually made out of whalebone. And she said, well, this is a harpoon. I said, oh, I've got one of those over the fireplace in the West Room. And she said, this is a knife, big knife for cutting the blubber knife. I said, oh yeah, I've got one of those. And she's looking at me, so what the hell have you got? I said, well, I sort of live in a museum too. Yeah. And I got whale teeth, and I got walrus tusks, and it's crazy, but that's just how it is.
So after the service, you started a family somewhere along the line?
Oh, I did, right there in Avondale. And I have 2 great kids and 3 wonderful grandkids. It's amazing how that all has transpired.
So you got to tell me, Josh or Sarah, either one going to carry on the boatyard and the whole name?
Well, I don't know yet. It's a little too early to tell yet.
Okay.
But one time Josh was asked when he was younger, he said, do you want to do the boatyard? And he said, I watched my father work every weekend and every holiday. He says, why would I do that? And the sad thing is I sent him to college, and now he doesn't have it. He's got a wonderful gig he's got going on right now. He teaches instructors of paddling and kayaking, and goes all over the country and the world to certify instructors to do this.
Wow.
And gets paid for it. He's been to Japan 3 or 4 times, and he's been to China, Formosa, and giving a class. He goes to Maine, he goes to Wisconsin, he goes all over the place. Or as his wife says, you don't work, you just play, which he still does. He works for the park system down in Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
But if we go another generation, this spring, I'll be going to my grandson's graduation from the University of Vermont.
Wow.
So he goes there.
Congratulations.
And his sister is at Amherst, is a junior. No, junior, I think she's now. And then my other granddaughter is in Adelphi in Long Island College there, but just finished. She's going to be a world traveler too. Just finished a semester in Rome, but traveled all over Italy and just loves it. And I think this summer she's got a job on some sort of a dig in Romania or something. My kids are all over the place. The little niche, it's back into my Indian heritage, is the Mohegan tribe. A co-founder of Dartmouth College was a Mohegan Indian. It was a young boy that was sent to England, speak English, came back and got into education. So the tribe has always thought highly of education. And so they have a little a fund that is available for all of the Mohegan children to go to college. So
Part of their success. Yeah, good for
a
them.
little stipend that sort of keeps that generation of higher education alive and well. So I'm very lucky that way.
Good. And Mrs. Hall now, how did you come to meet?
Well, my first wife, I have two wives. They both talk to each other and we're both friends and everything going on well that way. But it's really kind of interesting because my first wife was, her last maiden name was Hofer, but her mother was a Perry, of the Perry family.
Oh,
So we tie in, and actually over in there's a dollhouse over in the Smith's house, which was hers, my first mother-in-law, but gave it to my daughter. It's my daughter's dollhouse, sits over here in the building next to her.
wow.
It's a great big one of those.
I know it.
You know exactly,
Yeah.
So my daughter said, I saw her, she said, tell them about the dollhouse. I said, okay, so that's another little bit of history of things that are here. My wife now, we met at the boatyard. She was from Connecticut, up in Bolton, Connecticut, and her family had always been boating around the river and stuff, and she wanted to learn how to sail and stuff, and bought a catboat from a customer of mine at the boatyard, and then just kept it there, and that's how I first met her. Okay. And it's really quite funny. Her father said to me, said, you know, if you help my daughter get the sails on her boat, she'll probably thank you. Well, that was 20-some years ago, and it's been a wonderful thank you.
Oh, that's awesome.
But that's how I met Bridget, who it's really funny. She was a CPA for Deloitte & Touche, and actually she came back here to Avondale or Westerly just before 9/11, and she'd be walking through that building, going to work, had been there still. So, but we've had a wonderful time. She's a yacht broker, so staying with the boating tradition, and it's just really superb at it. And certainly a great help at the boatyard by a little bit of the CPA bit. Oh, sure. So she's certainly more than a partner on all of this, and just a wonderful person to be with. So that was
one of the many employees that have come through the
oh
boatyard.
God, I can't even.
I've known hundreds myself.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When you start at the boatyard, I'll be talking to somebody who said, you remember when I worked there? I go, oh God, you did work there. Sure. You know, so many kids that were...
Larry Stedman for years.
Oh,
the,
God.
The Kent boys.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Doug Brainer's daughter, Kristen, worked for you, right?
Kim was there for a long period of time.
Kim,
and one of the other key guys that was there at the boatyard for a while, it was Steve Farrago, who's still, still around.
Yeah, I saw Steve last week.
Oh,
Looks
yeah.
great.
There's people like Carl Caboni and Capizano, both Lenny Cap and Jimmy Cap, they were in our class. And,
sure.
And a great...
Yeah, my father's cousins, Capizanos.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of, like I said, I've known so many that have spent summers, winters, half their careers working part-time, full-time at the
boatyard. Well, way back, one of the early workers we had was Ben Wiedenberg, he was the chief of police.
Harpington, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was either there or here, but Ben used to.
Here?
I think it was here.
Yeah.
He would be there, but just so many wonderful tales and things that I remember my grandfather would say. Brent Lamphere was a character. I mean, many have us down at Watch Hill with the two charter boats down there. And the lady came down on the dock, and she wanted to buy a fish. And Brent says, well, I have two here. I got this little one, and I got one a little bit bigger. He says, you probably should buy the little one. And the lady says, why? He says, well, that fish is a female, and they're far tenderer. Of course, it's absolute lie, but he could stay there with a straight face and just weave these tales. And even another Watchell story, when my father had his shop down there doing scrimshaw and carving ducks and things like that, they would start a rumor at the merry-go-round and see how long that rumor would take to get halfway down the block by, in one of the buildings just past the Olympia Tea Room there. They'd see how long it would take to. Always a character, right up till his very end. He had ulcers and was in the hospital for a while, and driving the nurses crazy because he was whittling a little ship model that he put in a bottle here at the hospital. And they had wood chips all over the bed, in the hospital. But that was him.
God bless him.
Yeah.
Good. So you've seen a lot through your youth and living your whole life in Avondale.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, you're still working on that chapter.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Any world events or hurricane storms that really shook up the community?
Oh God, yeah. Geez, 38, of course, I missed because I'm not born till 40. But anyhow, you hear tales of how that all was. It's been spoken a number of times, written up a number of times. But 1954, Hurricane Carol. My grandparents lived upstairs in the same house as we did there in Avondale. My grandfather came down and he said, get up. You're going to see something today you've never seen before. And I was wondering what the hell that was going to be. That was early in the morning of the Hurricane Carol. And boy, did I see things I'd never seen before. We ended up with about 4 foot of water at the bottom of the house. But the house was built in 1740. Oh, that's the other thing. We were second people in the house. It's 1749. So, but anyhow, but I was there in that old house, and the post and beam structure, it would breathe, and the wall would come in and wall would go out. But she still stayed there, and she'd been there through a great number of hurricanes. And the last one close thing really was Sandy, and there was water around the house at that point in time. Did not come in the house. Okay. And even some of the storms we had a year ago, the water would flood in Avondale a little bit, but nothing serious like it did before. But you could tell that the global warming and the normal raise of the tide and everything it's real. It's happening.
We get far more these king high tides that they call than we ever used to get.
Well, yeah, just like down in Watch Hill in the parking lot there, I hear everybody rant and rave away. They can't go out to Napa Tree Point and well, of course you can, but that's beside the point. But so does the water. So probably 6 or 8 times a summer, that parking lot is flooded. Just showing what's really happening in the world. But as I say, the great thing about the river is it's 1,000% cleaner than it ever was. So that's some good and some bad with the flushing of things. But that was.
So John Hall, do you have a philosophy at 85 years old? What's gotten you this far, and what do you want to pass on to the next generation?
Don't ever worry about things you can't change, which is what most of us do. Things we have absolutely no control of throws us in a tailspin. And there's plenty of that going on right now throughout the world. So only think about really the things that you can change in your life and sometimes that changes, you have to change. I mean, like I'm talking about Avondale. Is it the old place that I love and want to be there? No, it's a different place now. And it's not going to change. It has changed. I have to change. And I think as you get older, and I'm sure every one of us my age or even older has to think about why don't I want it to change? And it is going to change. And so we have to think about that, I think. So my philosophy, even though I fight it tooth and nail, but I have to realize I have to change because the times have changed. We're not living in the world that we thought was perfect and right. But anyhow, it's
We'll make today as perfect as we can.
yeah.
Treat people well and
Yeah.
do the best that we can every day.
At least say good morning to somebody, even if you don't know them.
Yeah,
I do that, you know. Whether you're at McQuaid, you go, hey, good morning.
absolutely.
And you know, and some of them, they'll look, they're like, God, no one said that to me before. Or they have, or not in a long time. But I try to do that. Am I perfect? No, I'm far from perfect. But I know the things that I have to change and make better.